In our twisted prehistory, anthropologists have identified nearly a dozen distinct human species. Each species, with its own distinct characteristics, has left behind fragments of their ancient presence. Yet, among this diverse array of hominins, Homo erectus stands out in both time and space. In this video, we will explore the story of Homo erectus, filled with adventure and adaptability. Among the diversity of the Homo genus, the status of some of the early species, such as Homo habilis and Homo rudolfensis, has recently undergone scrutiny, as they occupy a transitional phase between Australopithecus and Homo. These ancestors found their niche primarily in the vast expanses of Africa. As we journey further back, we encounter the presence of Homo heidelbergensis. They roamed the earth from around 800,000 to 400,000 years ago, leaving their mark on the ancient landscape. And then we come face to face with the enigmatic Neanderthals and Denisovans, closely related human species that found their habitats in specific regions of Eurasia for approximately 300,000 years. We must not forget the fascinating twists offered by Homo naledi and Homo floresiensis. The burials of Homo naledi deep within the Rising Star cave system in South Africa signal the complexity of their behavior. Equally captivating is the story of Homo floresiensis. Discovered on the Indonesian island of Flores in 2003, these small-bodied hominins lived as recently as 50,000 to 60,000 years ago. Yet, when we step back and consider the grand panorama of human history, there is one species that reigns supreme with its extensive temporal and geographical reach. Homo erectus emerges as the most diverse and successful human species to have ever roamed the earth. 2 million years ago, Homo erectus emerged as a new hominin species. The major questions with regard to Homo erectus have been the degree of human-like anatomical features in them. These include sexual dimorphism, complex cognitive abilities, craniodental anatomy, and growth patterns. They exhibited human-like behaviors such as advanced tool use, hunting, fire control, and the ability to colonize new environments beyond Africa. Homo erectus fossils range in age from approximately 1.8 million years ago in Africa to as recent as 100,000 years ago in Indonesia. The species rapidly spread throughout its entire range, but disappeared from Africa at least 500,000 years earlier than in Asia. The fossil record for Homo erectus is more abundant but also more diverse and complex. This complexity is evident in both the fossils themselves and their locations of discovery. This complexity has led to intense debates about the phylogeny of Homo erectus. Homo erectus had distinct anatomical features. They had larger brains, averaging around 900 cc, and their skull shape was unique with a receding forehead, prominent brow ridges, and a squared-off appearance at the back. Their cranial bones were thicker, and some had a sagittal keel. Their faces had reduced projection, and their back teeth were smaller. There were variations among Homo erectus fossils from different regions. Asian specimens had thicker skulls and larger brow ridges than African ones. The sagittal keel was more pronounced in Asians. Fossils from Georgia also had distinct characteristics. Some researchers argue for classifying African Homo erectus as a separate species called Homo ergaster, while the Asian variant is still called Homo erectus. Homo erectus had a body size and proportions similar to modern humans. They had long and powerful legs, suggesting they could run in open savanna environments. Evidence suggests they had reduced body hair, efficient sweating, and darker skin, indicating an active lifestyle. However, recent findings show greater variability within Homo erectus fossils. Some African and Georgian fossils are smaller than the well-known Turkana boy fossil. This variation may be due to adaptations to different local environments, similar to modern humans. Homo erectus also had reduced sexual dimorphism in body size compared to earlier hominins. This suggests changes in social organization and a different lifestyle compared to earlier hominins, such as intense male competition for mating access was common. The increase in female size may also be related to the benefits of increased energy transfer to offspring and the mechanical advantages of a lengthened lower limb during walking. These changes suggest that Homo erectus required a shift to a higher quality diet to support their large body and brain size. These body size and energetic shifts also necessitated assistance during childbirth and cooperative care of infants. African sites associated with Homo erectus feature stone tools of the Oldowan industry, such as flakes and choppers. Around 1.5 million years ago, some Homo erectus populations began using more advanced tools called Acheulean tools. These tools were carefully shaped on both sides through bifacial flaking, requiring planning and skill. Hand axes with a thicker base and rounded tip were the most common tool form. Other tools like scrapers and cleavers were also present. Homo erectus originated around 1.8 to 1.9 million years ago and existed until approximately 0.78 million years ago. Although the first wave of migration from Africa to Eurasia is not well understood, it is generally believed that Homo erectus was the first to leave Africa. The earliest fossils of Homo erectus have been found in East Africa, particularly in sites like Kubifora in Kenya. Significant discoveries have also been made in Tanzania, Ethiopia, and South Africa. From Africa, Homo erectus spread to Western and Southeastern Asia around 1.7 to 1.8 million years ago and persisted until the Middle Pleistocene. In China, Homo erectus evidence has been found in various regions and time periods. The famous Peking man fossils were discovered near Beijing, estimated to be 400,000 to 700,000 years old. Stone tools dating back 2.1 million years have been found in China, suggesting earlier hominin migration from Africa. In island Southeast Asia, Homo erectus, or its descendants, may have survived until the end of the Pleistocene. The first Homo erectus fossils outside of Africa were discovered in Java, Indonesia, known as Java man. These fossils are around 1.6 to 1.8 million years old, with more recent findings suggesting ages ranging from 43,000 to 500,000 years. The presence of isolated hominin populations in the region is intriguing, considering the discovery of Homo floresiensis fossils in Flores and possible hominin fossils in the Philippines. The dispersal of Homo erectus was likely complex, and the migration routes and gene flow involved were more intricate than previously thought. Recent discoveries in Dmanisi, Georgia, suggest that early specimens classified as Homo ergaster or a new taxon, Homo georgicus, may have been part of the first migration. The Dmanisi fossils exhibit distinct traits, but have smaller brains and bodies compared to African Homo erectus. This challenges the theory that the Dmanisi hominins represent an early form of Homo erectus and suggests they may have evolved from habilis-like ancestors who had already left Africa. This would require a re-evaluation of the reasons for the initial hominin migration from Africa. In Western Europe, it was previously believed that Homo erectus arrived much later due to the harsh Ice Age climate. However, recent fossil discoveries challenge this assumption. Fossils dating to about 1.2 million years ago were found in Spain, and a collection of fossils from the Gran Dolina site in Spain dates to around 800,000 years ago. In England, footprints believed to be 950,000 years old were discovered, making them the oldest human footprints found outside Africa. The classification of the first Europeans as Homo erectus, or a later species, is still debated among researchers. During its existence, Homo erectus coexisted with other early Homo species. In Africa, Homo erectus overlapped with Homo habilis, and in China, there may have been overlap with Homo heidelbergensis. In Indonesia, there is a possibility of overlap with Homo sapiens. Around 3 million years ago, the Earth became drier, and this was followed by cycles of glacial periods starting around 2.5 million years ago. These changes affected the environment, with grasslands replacing forests in East Africa and spreading into parts of Eurasia. This had a big impact on the animals living at that time. Homo erectus had a body that was good for walking long distances with less energy. During a period about 1.9 to 1.4 million years ago, there is no clarity about Homo erectus habitat. However, they were less likely to be found in areas with lots of big carnivores. This suggests they tried to avoid those dangerous predators by living in groups. In a later period around 1.39 to 0.9 million years ago, Homo erectus started to prefer living at higher altitudes. This may mean they changed their strategy to avoid predators or became better at defending themselves. Homo erectus chose places with certain types of rocks and sediments outside of Africa. This was because those areas had flint, which they used to make tools. In Africa, they preferred to live near old, large lakes in the Rift Valley, where they had access to wooded areas and water. Scientists created maps to show the most likely paths Homo erectus took when they moved out of Africa. They considered factors like the likelihood of encountering carnivores, the distance to water, the type of rocks and sediments in an area, and the altitude. These maps suggest that Homo erectus left Africa through the Sinai Peninsula and possibly the Levantine corridor, and eventually reached places like the Caucasus, Southeast Asia, and Southern Europe. The reasons behind their vast travels can be attributed to several factors. Firstly, Homo erectus had a larger brain and body size, which was supported by a diet that included more meat. Their increased physical capabilities, such as longer and more powerful legs, enabled them to walk and run longer distances in search of food. As they consumed higher up the food chain, they needed to expand their home range to find sufficient game. Additionally, cultural developments played a significant role in their migration. Homo erectus improved their stone tool technology, allowing them to adapt to different environments more effectively. The discovery and utilization of fire provided them with greater flexibility in surviving and thriving in various landscapes. Furthermore, the Pleistocene climate shift during that time had a profound impact. Changes in air temperature, precipitation patterns, and access to water sources affected the distribution of plant and animal communities, including Homo erectus. If they relied heavily on hunting, the migration patterns of their prey might have led them to travel increasingly longer distances in search of food. The role of fire in human societies transcends as a mere chemical reaction or natural resource. It becomes a technology, a societal necessity, and even part of our spiritual experience, all of which are deeply connected to the functioning of human societies. The cooking hypothesis proposes that Homo erectus was the first to evolve the ability to consume cooked food during the Lower Paleolithic era. While early evidence of controlled fire is sparse before the Upper Paleolithic period, debate persists on whether this absence indicates a lack of systematic fire use, or if it's just hard to find evidence for it. The earliest evidence of human interaction with fire appears around 1 million years ago, which was likely sporadic and seasonal, evident from sites like Jesher Benot Yaakov in Israel and Wonderwork Caves in South Africa. Evidence suggests brief interactions with fire without consistent maintenance. Research has considered alternative sources of evidence like changes in biology and behavior of early hominins. Humans have evolved to need cooked food in their diets, which significantly boosts energy intake and aids in digestion. Cooking makes food easier to digest increases energy gain by around 30% and reduces the energy our bodies spend on digestion. This enhanced energy intake is crucial for human health and survival, especially during times of food scarcity. Humans have adapted for efficient processing of easily digested foods and struggle with relatively indigestible raw foods. These adaptations include changes in the mouth, jaw, stomach, and intestines, making us less efficient at digesting raw foods compared to other primates. Human saliva contains more enzymes that break down starch compared to our primate relatives, suggesting an adaptation to consuming cooked starchy foods. Additionally, there are some genes related to lipid and carbohydrate metabolism which have been positively selected in humans, Neanderthals, and Denisovans, indicating adaptation to a cooked diet. While Neanderthals sometimes lived without fire, they also had genes associated with cooking. Homo erectus changed their diet over time, starting to eat cooked food, which provided more energy compared to raw food. This dietary shift coincided with an increase in their overall energy expenditure, suggesting cooking played a significant role in their evolution. Homo erectus started eating cooked food, which provided more energy compared to raw food. This dietary shift coincided with an increase in their overall energy expenditure, suggesting cooking played a significant role in their evolution. Studies of Homo erectus' digestive system show changes in teeth, jaws, rib cage, and pelvis, suggesting adaptations to a cooked diet. While many believe that increased consumption of animal-based foods like meat and marrow could be a possible reason. However, a challenge arises because erectus had to eat fallback foods, including raw plants, during times of food scarcity. Their teeth and digestive systems weren't suited for processing raw, high-fiber plants if they couldn't cook. Physically processing plants, like underground storage organs, before eating them to make them easier to chew and digest is one possibility, but it is rare. Homo erectus likely scavenged for food, including meat and marrow, but faced challenges with disease from raw meat. Eating marrow and brains, with lower bacterial loads, may have been safer, but cooking would have been even safer. Cooking reduced the risk of disease and provided a reliable backup when hunting failed. Researchers have found that chimpanzees understand the concept of cooking and can demonstrate inhibition by taking food to be cooked rather than eating it raw. Given that Homo erectus likely had even greater cognitive abilities, it's plausible that they could have cooked food too. While hunting for meat and marrow is lucrative, it's unreliable, as evident in modern tropical hunter-gatherers' struggles to obtain sufficient animal food daily. In times of meat scarcity, reliance on starchy cooked plants as a quick energy source is crucial, as seen in modern contexts. Without access to cooked food, failed hunters would spend many hours chewing and digesting raw plant foods to meet their energy needs. Homo erectus likely relied on cooked food as a backup during meat shortages to meet daily energy needs. Scientists recognize two major rises in human brain size, suggesting that the first rise in brain size around 2 million years ago, which includes Homo habilis and Homo erectus, was linked to increased meat consumption. The second was in the latter half of the Middle Pleistocene in Homo heidelbergensis, in which fire could have played a role. However, if cooked food indeed contributed to this, we would expect to see other signs of improved diet quality or changes in tooth size. Surprisingly, there are no such signals from that time period, making the introduction of cooked food at that time problematic. Another challenge arises from calculations which suggest that if Homo erectus only ate raw food, they would have needed to spend more than 8 hours a day chewing, similar to gorillas. However, this assumption might underestimate the actual chewing time needed by Homo erectus due to their smaller teeth and possibly smaller gut. Homo erectus and later species likely needed to eat cooked food to get enough calories per day to support their larger bodies and brains without spending all day chewing. An alternative theory proposes that early humans, starting with Homo habilis, fueled their larger brains with a diet rich in raw meat and animal fats, which are more energy efficient than plant foods. However, evidence from carnivores doesn't strongly support this idea, as brain size variation within the bear family doesn't correlate with their meat consumption. If cooked food did contribute to the increase in brain size in Homo erectus, what caused the later shift in brain size during the mid-Pleistocene? One possibility is that improvements in hunting skills allowed for the procurement of fat-rich prey, which could have sustained brain growth. Endurance running evolved in Homo erectus for long-distance walking, relying on anatomical adaptations such as head and trunk stabilization, foot energy storage, and efficient heat dissipation like reduced body hair. As evidence for clothing use came later in human history, their ability to stay warm at night without body hair suggests reliance on alternative methods like clothing or controlling fire. Homo erectus likely slept on the ground due to reduced climbing ability but faced risks from predators in savanna environments. While some animals sleep on the ground without fire, they remain vigilant against predators and sleep for short spans. However, among Kalahari foragers, fire significantly reduces predation risk during sleep. Therefore, if Homo erectus didn't control fire, they might have relied on behaviors like enhanced sprinting or building barriers against predators. Despite the benefits of cooked food, early humans like Homo erectus didn't thrive in terms of population densities. One possibility is that by adapting to cooked food, humans may have lost the ability to digest fiber-rich foods, which other hominoids like chimpanzees can survive on. This could have led to a reliance on higher quality foods like animal products and low-toxin plants, making survival more challenging. The transition from Homo habilis to Homo erectus wasn't sudden but a gradual process, suggesting a complex series of shifts rather than a single event. Homo habilis likely relied on mechanically processed foods before the prevalence of cooking, as indicated by their jaw size similar to Australopithecus. The increase in brain size in Homo habilis could have been driven by intermittent use of fire, allowing consumption of tender foods, supporting brain development despite inconsistent access to cooked food. It's often suggested Homo habilis had a faster life history compared to Homo erectus. A faster life history implies earlier weaning and greater dependence of young individuals on adults for food. This raises questions about how early weaning could be possible on a raw diet, unless certain elusive foods like brain and fat-rich marrow were reliably available. Humans started to use fire to cook to extract sufficient energy from food is only partly testable through experiments on the physiological and molecular effects of cooked food consumption. It has limitations due to lack of adequate archaeological record. Signs of fire at sites like Wonderwork Cave indicate dispersal of Homo erectus isn't strongly linked to significant fire use, challenging theories of its revolutionary impact. The challenge in studying early fire use lies in spatial differentiation from stone tool sites, making fire evidence hard to find. Evidence of tuberculosis evolution in Homo suggests fire exposure between 6,000 and 70,000 years ago, while dental calculus analysis indicates raw food consumption at 1.2 million years ago. Adaptation to smoke toxins in Homo sapiens suggests fire exposure by at least 550,000 years ago.